Okay.
Alright.
Alright, so let's look at the first review sheet. So that's the one on top there. And let's work through these, unless anybody has a specific question you want to ask first. Otherwise, we'll just start working through these problems. What? Oh, so you've already done some problems? Okay, so Cam has already started.
He said she's
So
weird.
we're gonna take his question, which is number 28. So we're looking first at number 28. And it says solve this quadratic inequality. All right, so what do you think? This is a no calculator problem. What do you think you will do first? Factor. Absolutely, you're gonna factor. And if you have issues with factoring, you are going to check by foiling it back and make sure that you have factored correctly. Okay? Now, when you see that symbol right there, two things. You gotta have a zero, we got it. Gotta have a number line. On the number line are going to be two dots. Where do you think the dots are gonna be? -1 and 7. They will be open dots. And now I need to figure out where to shade. So I pick a number. Huh?
2.
2. Choose a fine number, we'll pick 2. If I put in 2, I get 2 minus 7, which is -5. And I get 2 plus 1, which is 3. That's -15, I'm multiplying. Is -15 bigger than 0? No. So I don't shade where the 2 is, and I do shade the other parts, which means my answer is -infinity to -1, or 7 to infinity. Remember that now, Cam? Did anyone else happen to do any studying over the weekend? On this, did you have a question about a particular problem on the review sheet? Which one, Nas? Okay, Nas has a question about 12, which is find the vertex of the parabola. How do we find the vertex of a parabola? I think this was on the mini review.
Minus b
over 2a, yep. So for this problem, that will be positive 12 over 6, which is 2. And that is the x coordinate. And then to get the y coordinate, I will just plug that back in. So 3 times 2 squared minus 12 times 2 plus 4. You'll have your little calculator if you need it. Remember, we square first. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12, minus 24 plus 4. So that is -12 plus 4, -8. And there is your vertex. All right. All right, let's go back to page 1. Find all the asymptotes. Okay, so what kinds of asymptotes do we have? We have vertical and we have horizontal. How do we find either one? Oh boy. We gotta factor our denominator. Our denominator tells us, let's see, x minus 5x plus 1. And again, the factoring on the exam is super simple, but you gotta check it to make sure you have your signs right. And then that tells me where my vertical asymptotes are. My vertical asymptotes are x equals 5 and x equals -1, because vertical asymptotes happen when the denominator is 0. Right? Now, how do we get a horizontal asymptote? We box in. Now, I didn't write down the original problem, but the original problem, oh wait, can I box these in? No, because they don't match. So when they don't match, I put in what I'm missing, so that would be a 0x squared on the top. So my horizontal asymptote is y equals 0. Alright, hopefully this is jogging some memories, right? Alright, find the remainder. We did this on the mini review. We set up a division, checking to make sure there's no zeros. And then what's going to go in the box? No, -2 goes in the box. Alright, let me double check that. That seems kind of a big number. How does that arithmetic look? Did I do okay?
Yep.
-51 is my remainder. Number 3, oh my gosh, we talked about this majorly the other day. How do you find a y-intercept? You plug in 0 for x. And when you plug in 0 for x, what do we end up with?
28 over 3 plus 4.
What's 0.3 to the 0? 1, right? So don't I have 28 over 7? Which is 4. So my y-intercept is 4. What do I do with this guy? Figure out, well, first of all, I'm going to factor this one, that last one, and that's x plus 2, x plus 1. Right? So what's my common denominator going to be? X plus 2, x plus 1. So this one needs an x plus 2. This one needs an x plus 1, and that one's all set. So why did I get all the denominators to match? So I can ignore them, right? So x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 2 equals 7. And then collect like terms, and let's move that 7 over 2. So x squared plus 4x minus 5. I subtract 7. That factors. Double check my factoring, make sure I did that right. And so what are the answers to the problem? X equals -5 or positive 1. Right? Number 5. Don't let the vocabulary scare you. for solving. You can solve this a couple of different ways. First thing I'm going to do is add that 4 to the other side. Get my absolute value by itself. Now, how would you solve this? You can split it up into 2 equations. That's one option. You can say 3x minus 1 equals 6. 3x minus 1 equals negative 6. And you can just solve it. So 3x equals 7. So one answer is 7/3. And the other answer is negative 5/3. That will work. All right, what about the next one? This can be also solved a couple of different ways. It too can be split up, but that is usually harder than just leaving it together. We want to get x by itself. We want to end up with x right in the middle of all this. So first thing maybe we'll do is add 4. And notice I'm adding it to this part, and that part. So 2 less than 3x less than or equal to 15. Right? And then divide by 3. And there's our answer. This will be a multiple choice question. So that might be the answer, but it also might be this. Isn't that the same thing, just in interval notation? Solve. Seems easy enough. What do we need to do? Quadratic formula. Yeah, I don't think that one's going to factor. So factoring is sometimes an option. I don't think for that one. No, so we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, if it helps you, write the formula down. Just write the formula down separately. If it helps you, write down a equals 1, b equals negative 7, and c equals 4. So if you write your formula and you write down your a, b, and c values, then all you have to do is plug them in. And this is what you'll have. So 7 plus or minus what? 49 minus 16, 33. And that one does not simplify at all. So that is the answer. We had one the other day where we had an I. That can happen if that number turns out to be negative. Number 8, domain. 2 things we have to worry about with domain. Anybody remember what the 2 things are? Denominator can't be 0, and whatever is under the radical has to be bigger than or equal to 0, right? So this one doesn't have a radical, but it does have a denominator. If the denominator can't be 0, then what can you tell me? X can't be negative 2. Now again, multiple choice. That might be the answer, and it might be this. Isn't that a fancy way of saying that? Everything except -2. Number 9, we actually did one of these on the mini review. Who remembers what we do for question number 9? We take the x plus 1 and put it here and here. So 3x plus 1 squared minus 2x plus 1 plus 1. Right? Then what do I do now? This is a FOIL. So I have to do x plus 1 times x plus 1. And I do that first. I do exponents first. So x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then what? I'm going to distribute everything, collect like terms, and then I will be finished. This isn't a solve, so my answer won't be x equals. I'm going to distribute it all and collect like terms. Okay, so we've got 3x squared plus 6x plus 3 minus 2x minus 2 plus 1. So it looks like 3x squared plus 4x plus 2. And that's it. Okay? I'm trying to get through this, so I'm going kind of quick, but don't get bogged down in the arithmetic, make sure you know how to do the problem. So when you have time to do it, you can do it. All right, number 10. How do I find f of g of x? It actually is going to be exactly like the problem we just did, because we're going to take the g thing, which is x plus 2, and we're going to plug it in for all of the x's in f. So we're going to have x plus 2 squared minus 3x plus 2 plus 1. So this means take the g, which is x plus 2, and plug it into all the x's in f. And then what do we do? Once we get our g's plugged into our f, what do we do now? This is going to be a FOIL. Then we're going to distribute, and it's going to be exactly like we just did. So quickly, so we can get to the next problem. X squared plus x minus 1. And that's it. That's the answer.
You don't have to factor that.
No. We're not solving it. We're just seeing what we get when we plug in G into F. All right. This is a sketch. So first of all, what shape is it going to be? Parabola. Parabola. It's going to be opening down because of the negative out in front. And it's gonna have a vertex 3 units to the right and 1 up. So 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 1 up, opening down. That's it, that's all you have to do. Did we already do 12?
Yeah.
Alright, 13. Write the equation that result if you apply the following transformations to y equals x squared. So it's a quadratic, you're starting with a parabola. You're gonna shift it to the left 2 units. How do you change your equation so that it shifts left 2 units? Plus 2 on the x, right? In the parentheses with the x. That takes you 2 to the left. Vertical stretch by a factor of 3. How do you stretch it vertically? Put a 3 out in front of it, a multiplier. And then how do you shift it up 1? Plus 1 on the end, and there's your equation. All right, number 14. Look at the picture. Here is where we sometimes get a little confused. Alright, so I need to label my x's here, so this is the this is alright, so you've got the picture. There it is. And I want to know where the function is increasing. What does increasing mean? Going up. So it looks like this and this is where it's going up. Would you agree with that? So your answer is, now when I drew that, I was going left to right. So your answer is the x's. So this stretch of x's is from -3 to 1. And this stretch of x's is from 3 to 4. So that is the answer to the question. Where is the curve going up? As you go from left to right, where is the curve going up? And your answer is x's. X's, left to right. Decreasing, we would do exactly the same thing, only we would be looking at the parts where we were going down. Right? Okay, what are the x-intercepts, or the zeros, they're also called zeros, for problem number 15? So guys, if you were going to draw a picture of number 15, where would you put the dots on the x-axis at? 2 and 4. Those are your x-intercepts. 2 and 4. Those are your x-intercepts. Where's the y-intercept? I don't know. How do I find a y-intercept? I put 0 in for x. So if I put 0 in for x, I get -2. I get -32. Did you get -32 for your y-intercept? If you put 0 in for x. At what point is the curve tangent to the x-axis? Now, do not get freaked out by that. If I told you to graph this picture, first of all, it's a cube. Would you agree with that? X cubed? X cubed starts down here. What does it do when it gets to that point? Well, look at your equation. What does it do when it gets to that point? It doesn't bounce. At 2, it passes through. Where does it bounce? At 4? Why does it bounce at 4? Because that factor is squared. This point right here is called, it's tangent to the x-axis, right there at that bounce. They're asking you, in mathematical language, they're asking you, where does the curve bounce off the x-axis? Well, where does it bounce off? It bounces off at 4. Because that is the factor that is squared. And every time it has a squared, it's going to bounce.
Plugging 0 for the x's. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's a currency. Plugging 0.
Find the inverse. I think we did this the other day. How do we find the inverse? Switch the y and the x, and then solve for y. So add 5 and divide by -2. That's the inverse. Write this in exponential form. That means loop-de-loo it. Loop-de-loo it. So remember, this means log base e. So if I loop-de-loo that, what do I get? E to the x equals 8. And that's your answer. You're not solving it. You're not finding x. You're just rewriting it. And when you rewrite it, you just loop-de-loo it. Loop-de-loo it. So that would be the answer. E to the x equals 8. These two things mean the same thing. Alright, what do you do with this one? I'm going to write it as a single logarithm. So it's going to be ln something. What's the something? Well, what are we going to be doing with our 3 and our x? Multiplying them. And our y is going to be divided. And the x is going to be squared. $19. Kind of an easy one, should be anyway. What do we do with 19? 4 to the second equals 3x plus 1. So 16 equals 3x plus 1, 15 equals, I got x equals 5. X cubed minus 9x.
Take out a x.
Let's factor it, so we'll pull out an x, and we're left with x squared minus 9, and then what about that? Difference of squares. So now I'm ready to sketch it. I start by putting dots on my x-axis. They're called x-intercepts. Where would they go? At negative 3, positive 3,
And 0.
and 0, because a plane X is a 0. And this is an x cubed problem. X cubed start down. Is there going to be any bouncing in this problem? So I'm just going to go through and connect. There we go. All right, number 21. The other day we talked about our PRRs, possible rational roots. And we said the PRRs are factors of the last thing over factors of the first thing. So our PRRs are going to be 6, 3, 2, and 1, factors of 6 over 3 and 1. Daniel, are you feeling okay?
Yeah, okay.
And then we're gonna make a list of all those. So, we can put them all over 1, so that would be 6, 3, 2, and 1. We put all those over 1. Or we can put them over 3. Now, when you put 6 over 3, you get 2, which is already in the list. 3 over 3 gives you 1, already in the list. 2 over 3, and 1 over 3. So there is the official list of possible rational roots. Now it says, find them.
Negative.
Now you have an option here. One way of finding them is to take numbers from this list and start dividing them out, right? And hoping that you get a 0. Another option, if you look at these numbers, another option in this problem would be to factor by grouping. So if I factor by grouping, that will be faster than guessing. If I factor by grouping, I'll take out a 3x squared and be left with x minus 2. And then I'll take out a negative 3 and be left with x minus 2. So x minus 2, 3x squared minus 3. How about that? What can I do with that? Take out a 3, and that leaves me with x squared minus 1, which factors into x plus 1, x minus 1. So what are the roots? The roots are positive 2, negative 1, and positive 1. If you got lost in there somewhere, then what you can do is pick numbers and divide them into your problem. Pick numbers from this list, divide them in, and keep going till you get a 0. When you get a 0, then you know that number you picked is one of your roots. And the numbers that'll work are 2, negative 1, and 1. Those are the numbers from that list that'll work. All right, now we got a calculator problem. We're going to solve this equation. Noticing that the x is an exponent, that means I'm going to need logarithms. So what do I do first? ln both sides. That cancels. So 3x minus 1 equals ln 5. That does not cancel, that stays. I'm trying to get x by itself. So I'm going to add 1 and divide by 3. So if I type that into my calculator, ln 5 plus 1 divided by 3, I get my answer. 0.8698. You're gonna wanna pay attention to the directions. That will be a free response question. So you'll wanna pay attention to the directions as far as rounding.
0.8698.
Okay? To the nearest dollar, how much would you have if you invested 12% interest compounded weekly? Is this going to be problem number 23? Is that going to be poked? No, it's going to be the other one.
The last one, LN parentheses 5.
Yes, I do that.
So we have this formula, and we wanna know, come on, we got a few more minutes. How much would you have if you invested 12,000? 0.035 compounded weekly for 10 years.
Here. You got it.
Why do I have 52? Because there are 52 weeks in a year. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that a 520. And this is one of our favorite kinds of problems because we just type it in. And it looks like $17,026.81. What formula do we need for 24? That's a perk. 24 is a perk.
Slash K.
Alright, so here we go. We wanna start with 386, we wanna end up with 1025. Don't know what R is, but we're waiting 3.8 hours. Now, kids, is that 3.8%?
No.
No, so don't change it. We only change percentages. Otherwise, just leave it alone. So we're trying to find the percent. Yep, the growth constant. So, what do we do first? So 1025 divided by 386. And then we're gonna ln both sides. And then divide by 3.8. So ln 1025 divided by 386 divided by 3.8. You should get 0.257. And that is the growth constant. So that's perfectly okay. Just leave it just like that. Okay. When you come back this afternoon, we are going to start with number 25, and we'll get this practice test done, and then you will do the other one on your own if you wish.
Wait, I might have to work on my